classic foraging recipe today. It's middle of summer, beginning of August. Time to make Staghorn Sumac lemonade. We're going to go over 3 different ways to make it and which one is better than the other. Lorenzo's shortcut if you need some in a pinch, and then a taste test between the 3 different types. So an important thing to know here is that it's not the sumac seeds of Staghorn sumac that are sour. It is a coating of acid, probably a couple different acids like malic acid, ascorbic acid, could be a mix. I can't seem to figure out exactly which types it is, but it's acid. So they're covered in an acidic coating. That coating can be washed off by the rain. So you can see the cluster on the bottom there. That's discolored. That means it's not going to taste as good, and basically that whole thing was flavorless. This one in the middle, this one had been hit by some rain, so the outside wasn't that sour, but the inside was, so that one I'll still use. And then the most bright red, that one is still very sour, and that's the best kind of Staghorn sumac cluster to get. So very important there. If it's been raining a lot, you might want to try to find a patch that hasn't been hit by a lot of rain or is sheltered. So here's the 3 different types of tea. Whole clusters, drupes seeds taken off of the stem, and a tea made with dried sumac. You can see which one is the most colored. That was the one in the middle. Okay, so making it with whole clusters. This is what I see most people doing, and this, this can work, but because the seeds are covered in a coating, that means that the inside of the clusters that is not getting, as exposed to water as much as the outside, that is the most potent part of the plant. So you get more of the sumac from the outside, but on the inside, it's not really that exposed, and it's not as sour as it could be. Now with dried sumac, you can take sumac, and this I bought at a store. It was a few years ago, and that's going to be important here. And you can just add some. This is just the sifted coating off of those berries, and you can put it in water and let it sit. So interestingly enough, after a couple days, mine got mold on it, and that's probably because my sumac was old. Too old to use, so that needs to get thrown away. It would work if it was very fresh. Sumac Aid with broken clusters. This is my favorite, and what's happening here, we're taking the clusters off of the stem, or we're taking the seeds off of the stem, and now we're creating more surface area for the acid to contact with the water. And you can also cut these up with a snips if you don't want to remove them by hand, and you should wear gloves if you have a cut on your hand because these are really sour. That means they're acidic. That means that it will burn. But we're creating more surface area for the water to come in contact with the acid, and this is going to give us a superior product. So what we're going to do is just put these into water, probably a ratio of like 1:4 sumac to water is probably the least that I would do, but you can get some variation if you get your sumac, before any rain has hit it. You can also just keep adding sumac seeds to this to make it more sour and just adjust it to your taste. So this is going to be a nice gallon, and we're going to stir it. Stir it pretty well, because the other thing to take into account here is that friction will also increase the sour flavor by removing more of that acidic coating into the water. So beating it around with a whisk or a spoon is going to make it more sour, so do that a few times as it sits overnight. I like to do this overnight. Then another thing here, sour is only one flavor, and I don't want it to just be sour. It doesn't taste like much, so I want to give it some body, so we're going to add some herbs. That was some lemon verbena. If you can only add one herb, I would add anise hyssop. Anise hyssop is so good in a lot of things, but specifically, this is a cold infusion. So anise hyssop is really good in cold infusions like, overnight lemonade. Because if we cook this, that's another important thing to mention. If you cook this, it's going to make it astringent. So a cold infusion overnight, stirring it, a couple times as often as you can remember every few hours, that's going to give you just a nice sour taste and no astringency. If you boil it, it's not going to be that good at all. Then after it's sat for at least 24 hours, we're just going to strain this, and you want to put it through a double thickness of cheesecloth. If you don't, there's going to be a bunch of little hairs and things. You can see those on the side of the jar there, and those are going to be in your lemonade or tea. You want it nice and crystal clear. put it back into a container. Look at that beautiful color, right? Gorgeous. Now we're going to sweeten it to taste. I like maple syrup. That'll also keep the liquid clear. A lot of people like to use honey. That's fine too, but honey will make it cloudy. So if you want a crystal clear product, use maple syrup. Give that a good stir. Then we're going to add some lemon juice. So this is acidic, but lemon has an affinity for vinegar and sour things and fruity things, and it just makes it taste better. So we're not adding a ton of lemon. It's not going to taste like lemonade. It's still going to taste like Sumac-ade, but it's just going to make the flavor better. It's just going to enhance it. Lorenzo's shortcut. This is if you need Sumac-ade really quick. He forgot to make some for an event and had to buzz it with a hand blender.
Some water. I don't even know, like 5 to 1, I think, is like maybe better. And then the old immersion blender.
Do that thing. Love that Vitamix immersion blender.
It's crazy, dude.
The last one I had before this was like an electric toothbrush compared to this.
Exactly. So it's just buzzing it with a hand blender, and I think we did this for like 30 seconds. And this worked out really well if you need some sumac lemonade in a pinch. It's also more astringent. You get astringency here where you won't with a cold infusion. Just like that.
Oh!
And now a taste test of the 3 different types. Let's do a little taste test. So I think I'll start with the weakest stuff first. This one is the one made with dried sumac, which I could see had a little bit of mold on it, which means that if your sumac is dried and it's been sitting on a shelf for a while, that ascorbic acid, which is a natural preservative, is probably going to be denatured and a little bit tired, and I'm assuming it's not going to taste like much at all. Yeah, it's very watery. It's slightly tart, but it's watery. Next, I'll try the one made with whole clusters. Okay, so this one's good. It's way more tart. It's fine. You would have to drink this one kind of like all by itself, I think, for it to really taste like anything. It's okay, but we're not really going for okay. Finally, the super red one made with the sumac berries taken off of the stems. Whoa! It's so tart. It's so tart that I almost think I may have made that one a little too strong, which is good though, because this is one that you could maybe use for cooking or for drinking, and if you mix it with something like, a little bit of sugar or some honey or maple syrup, there's no question. Taking the sumac seeds off of the stems creates more surface area, and it gives you a much better, stronger, and faster infusion of the ascorbic acid into water. Yeah, that's delicious. Super tart. I would add a little bit of sweetener. Man, it's like there's no question at all. No question. Yum. Quick and dirty rundown of how I make sumac lemonade. Full recipe and everything is on my website. There's a link at the top of the video description for that. Thanks for watching.